Hello, everybody. Welcome today to the Chakra Way Meditation Podcast. And today I bring you another chakra chat. And today my guest is the beautiful Galina. And Galina is a yoga teacher. So far, so good. But also, she is a facilitator of the ancient game of Leela. And that is the thing that has really drawn me to Galina because the ancient game of Leela is not something I had heard about until I came across Galina. So I am really excited to find out more about this. It has very deep connections into Vedic traditions, into the chakras, into all that underpins our modern day yoga practice. But it is another incredible tool. And I'm all about bringing you as many tools as I can because one day I'm going to bring you a tool that really resonates and you go, aha, that's the one for me. So today we talk about the ancient game of Leela. So welcome, Galina. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting. I'm very excited. Hello, hello.
Okay, so let's get started with I suppose where and when and how did you first come across the game of Leela?
Well, my adventure with Leela started when I was actually thinking about what path should I choose in my life. I realized I need a change, and I always wanted to help people, but I didn't know how. Like, what should
Mm,
I do?
mm,
Yes, I am a yoga teacher. That time I wasn't even a yoga teacher yet. It was just at the very beginning of my the whole spiritual path of my life. And somehow, somewhere in some article, I found a mentioning of the game that 2000 years ago, over 2000 years ago, ancient yogis, they created that game just to entertain themselves.
yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I wonder, what is it? I want to know more. And it was very hard to find anything else because there was no information whatsoever. But I was keep digging, and then I was like, okay, if it's my thing, it's gonna come to me. I was just like, I was open. I'm like, I'm open to anything. I open to change. Let it come to me. And then I found another mentioning, another. And then I found a little book about the game with a little game field. But the book was very complex, very complicated. Ancient yogis, they didn't use easy to comprehend by Western mind language. So,
No, no, it's very
no,
convoluted. It needs a lot of translation.
yes, absolutely. So I was just, keep digging, keep learning. I started playing little by little with my friends, doing lots of notes, because Game of Leela has 72 squares where you travel. It has rows, but it also has squares. I started to play with my friends, with anyone who wanted to, just making notes. This is
Mm,
what happens here. This is what this means, comparing to that little book, which was still very complex to me. And slowly but surely, I became more and more and more aware. I'm also a channeler, and it was interesting how the game just taught me to trust myself, take my nose out of my notes, and just trust myself. And
mm.
then I would just keep playing. For now, I played with, I think, over over 1,000 people because it's been over 10 years now. And it's just imagine you have that tool that helps you connect with yourself even more. Even when a player thinks, I don't have any problems, I everything is fine, and all of a sudden the game shows him different situations, and he's like, wow, I didn't think about that. I need to think about that now. But this
Mm.
is how I came about the game. This is how I found it, and this is how I slowly was developing it year by year, day by day. That's how it happened.
What an incredible, what a beautiful tool that is. And I'm kind of shocked and surprised that it's not more widely known because as a yoga teacher, as a chakra expert, enthusiast, teacher, it seems like it's very aligned with the yogi in me, in you, in all of us. And in this sort of self-developmental field, which is huge. Everybody is beginning to wake up to the idea that they need to take responsibility for themselves, that there perhaps is more to life than what society shows them, and that the spirituality really adds so much to their lives. And so these little tools in this game, it feels like it should be an explosion of like, yeah, this is. But do you think, does it really require a facilitator to, I mean, of course it does. I'm sure it needs a guide, right, when you're playing. And it's just the facilitator and one player.
So it depends. To answer your first question, yes, I think it does because I just can't imagine how someone can play it without facilitator, without someone who's played. Because another thing in this game is that it has snakes, and the snake can bite you and take you all the way down to a certain square.
A bit like snakes and ladders.
Mhm.
A bit like snakes and ladders, yeah.
Yeah. And the facilitator can explain you why did you get from here to here. Sometimes people go in circles. And if you need someone who knows, who can guide you. It's kind of like, I think it's kind of like yoga. You can be practicing yoga by yourself, but if you haven't done it before, you don't know what you're doing, you can hurt yourself, right?
Yeah.
You can actually, instead of doing good, you can kind of hurt yourself, or you can get a wrong impression saying, I don't like it, ooh, I don't like it. And then when you get a good teacher, you fell in love with it.
Yeah.
So to me, it's, yeah, I feel like a channeler who just connects to universe, God, cosmic consciousness, and just answers the player's question. That's why it's so deep, and that's why I don't play lots of games during the. It's just like few games a month that I can do
Yeah.
because it takes so much of me. Usually it is one by one, but I do have games where I have four players doing it at the same time. It depends on the preference. Some people, because the game is so deep and very intimate, it opens everything in your life, all the situations, lots of past situations, lots of present situations and feelings, and not everyone is ready to open up and share it,
Mm.
especially with, even if you're playing with a friend, there are things that people are not ready. It's so deep, it's so intimate that people just not ready to talk about it. Even with a friend, it's just way too deep. It goes way, way far in your past or just down your soul, because that's what game teaches you, listening to your soul and doing what your soul wants you to do. And sometimes it's easier for people to play with someone because they're looking at other players in different situations slash squares, and they're thinking, yes, this is me. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
It changes it for them. But for some people, I have players who they've played multiple games with me. I have players who play every year and they still say, no, just me. I want to
Mm.
play by myself. I'm not ready to share it with anyone. I can't open myself when there are
Yeah.
strangers or friends around me because we're people, we're human, I'm going to be thinking, what are they going to think about me? How their opinion will change about me? So depends,
Yeah, yeah.
preferences.
The fear of judgment and the ability to be able to really open up is key. I totally get that. So the game itself is basically a board game. It's set out in squares and you roll a dice or something similar.
Well, yeah.
So tell me what kind of things are on the squares and how do, well, yeah, no, I'll ask the next question in a minute. What kind of things are on the squares?
So I can show you the the field if you want to. It
Well,
has multiple rows and it has different little squares. It's all the different situations in your life. It's the first row is your first chakra, where you basically vibrate on a very basic levels. And there are things as, anger, greed, conceit, avarice, those kind of things, which when person gets into that, when a player gets into that square, they're like, ew,
Yeah.
greed, ew. But if you think about it, without that particular greed that you have, would you be able to achieve what you have right now? Those are not bad situations and feelings and emotions that we have. Those emotions are just, taking us further in our life. It doesn't always have to be bad.
Mm.
So, and from the first row where you start, you throw a dice, you have to come with a question. You come to the game with a question always.
Right.
Question varies, of course, because some, especially young girls or women, single women, of course, often the question is, how do I find a family? How do I build my family? But sometimes they ask, how do I get married? Or how do I find a husband? You have to throw a six for the game to let you in. And sometimes they keep throwing, like, I don't understand. I'm like, what is your question? How do I find a husband? No, that's not what you want. It's not about finding a husband or a wife. It's about finding your true soulmate, being happy, building a happy relationship, happy family. And as soon as perspective changes in a player's head, that's when he or she throws a six and the game welcomes you in. And that's how you start playing and traveling from one row to another, getting all the way up. So that's how it's happening.
I love that. And it's, yeah, that in itself is so revealing because the questions that we ask ourselves is they're so important. They're so key because if you do just make it very focus driven, like, when will I get married, which is like, or something like that, to use your example, it's so nebulous. It's just like the wrong question because just the idea of being married is just a thing that there's a perception that you feel you need when actually what you want is your soulmate. Yeah, you're right. So does each row represent each chakra?
Yes, each row represents a chakra, and the very last row is cosmic consciousness, or what the game called gods themselves. It's basically when you reach the level after going through all of them, all the way up. It's when you reach in the level of being in absolute bliss, when you're realizing you are one with universe, you're vibrating with universe, you're not by yourself. You can just
Mm.
ask and you will receive. When you realizing that, you are a part of this whole huge cosmic consciousness and energy around us. That's the highest row, but to get there first, you slowly but surely going through all of them one after another. And the
Mm.
game shows you different situations. Like, of course, there is a chakra of your throat chakra. There is a square there that says voice or sound. And usually, people, sometimes when a player gets there, they realize that, well, yes, I have so much to express and to say,
Mm.
but when I'm trying to do so, people around me, they are not listening. And then the player starts to think about, what about people who are around me? Why am I feeling like that? Why am I feeling that I'm not expressing myself? I'm not being heard, actually.
Mm.
Different different it's so many situations in this game, 72 to be precise, but it does take you from your basic, from your very first chakra to covering all your major needs, where a person vibrates a little bit differently because the player is more concentrated on, I need money, I need house, I need place to live in, I need my safety, I need to
Mhm.
be sure I have something to eat, shelter and all that stuff. And that's where that's usually where the player actually faces conceit, greed, all those kinds of things.
Mm.
And then you're just getting yourself up. If you're thinking right, if the game, what the game shows you, your perception of the game, if you're thinking in the right way, there are also arrows that take you all the way up. So the game can be rather short or rather long, depending.
Wow. I love this. It's just a whole new way of discovering because the chakra system basically that's what I mean I managed as regular listeners will know I managed to make everything about the chakras especially when it comes to healing and self-developmental stuff. There's always like it's the fundamental underlying thing is just always there, and I feel very strongly, and this is beautiful because it does take you through and it points out, and in a way it's kind of like a little bit like a chakra reading in that, like when I do a chakra reading, I go through each of the chakras. And I always say to people, like, especially when they're learning the chakras and they're trying to heal their energetic body and work through the chakras, you have to start at the base. You can't just leap to your heart and expect everything to be good. In the same way that you can't start building a building on the fourth floor, you have to start at the foundations and you have to lay that down. And so working through this, and I guess, when you get an arrow or a ladder, as I'm this sort of thinking about it in terms of snakes and ladders, that's because maybe if you get a ladder from your sacral to your throat, that's because your solar plexus and the heart are kind of okay. They're kind of working happily and everything there is good. But actually, there's deeper, bigger work to do at the throat. That's amazing. And so, do you find that in just talking to somebody, in just making them become aware of where their limitations, their limiting beliefs, their blockages, when you just show them where their blockages are, is that healing for them? Do you find that that's the healing part of this?
That's when the healing starts, yes. Because
Yeah.
usually, like, I had a player, she had a question. She came with a question that was very important for her. And she was running in circles. Literally, she was throwing same numbers and getting to the same squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And she was, because the exit from the game is actually in the middle of the very last row. It's not the very last square of the game.
Okay.
And she was getting past it all the time. And she was throwing same numbers, absolutely same numbers, and she would travel to absolutely same squares.
Wow.
And I'm looking at her, and she did it maybe 4 or 5 times. I'm looking at her saying that, when are you gonna admit to yourself, like, you know what you're doing wrong? Why can't you just, look at this and admit it to your own self? You came with a question. You can't find an answer to that question without admitting certain thing to yourself.
Mm.
And this was it. She started crying and she realized that it was something she knew. She knew she had to let go of control. She
Mm.
knew it, but she didn't want to admit it, accept it. She was keep ignoring it. She closed the door
Mm.
behind herself, and that was it. I'm moving on, and she was keep looking away, and the game was keep showing her 4 times, this
Ah.
is what you need to look at to get the answer to your question. And yes, that's when it was very emotional, lots of crying, and that's when she realized, yes, she's like, I know I have to do this. I knew it, I just
Yeah.
didn't want to look it in the eye. And that's when the healing starts, because sometimes we put bandages on all our wounds, but the bandage won't heal it. You need to
Mm.
take the bandage off, face the pain, face whatever you're going to see under the bandage, and then cure your wound. Only then it's going to truly heal. So Leela takes all the bandages off. That's
Yeah.
why it's very emotional, it's very deep game. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I always feel that when I'm doing a chakra reading, I am basically holding up a mirror to somebody. And they know it. They deep down they know it. It's true. Whatever comes up is true. And but we are so good at hiding away and just choosing not to see these aspects of ourselves, choosing not to recognize. And it takes a fair amount of bravery and courage actually to really face up to yourself. We look at ourselves in the mirror, and I think, makeup and all that kind of stuff is often like a very good analogy in that, we look at ourselves in the mirror and we go, right, how can I cover up that bit of me that is truly me, my wrinkles, my blemishes, my, baggy, dark circles under my eyes.
Mhm.
I need to cover all that up to show, so that everybody out there thinks that I'm, close to perfect or whatever. Um, and then I can go out and we don't admit it to ourselves. We see these things, but we in ourselves, but we just go, right, how am I? All our focus is on how do we cover that up? And
Mhm.
it's not, clearly I'm talking about interior stuff, interior wounds, traumas, and that kind of thing. It's incredible work. I find this absolutely beautiful. I kind of want to see what a Leela game looks like, but I'll go online. I'm sure they probably sell them on Etsy or somewhere. But how, as a yoga teacher, I'm fascinated to know because my work with the chakras informs my yoga teaching hugely. How does the Leela game inform you as a yoga teacher? Do you think it's changed you or evolved you as a yoga teacher?
Ooh. Well, it changed so many things about me just because you're starting to look at the world differently. At every
Mm.
single situation, you start to look differently. Every situation in your life, you're thinking, aha, this is where I am right now, because that's what it is. It's a game of life.
Yeah,
And you're thinking, this is where I am. Okay, what should I do? How should I behave right now? How do I feel? It taught me to listen to my soul truly. And my style of teaching was a little bit different because I was more into hot power yoga, staying fit, super active, all that kind of stuff. But after learning all those things about myself first, I realized that this is not what I want to be given to people. I want to teach differently. I want my yoga class to give you something more than just, moving super quickly, sweating, and it's not
yeah,
a workout. To
yeah,
me, I realized that no, people need to learn how to move with their breathing. They need to learn how to listen and to respect their body. They need to leave the class feeling accomplished a little bit differently than just after a good workout.
yeah,
That was my main thing. I changed drastically from, go, 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 go. Okay, let's do this. We can do this. Keep breathing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To you start from breathing, start from acknowledging who you are, where you're at right now, and what we're gonna do. Doing it with a little bit deeper of understanding of what's going on right now.
yeah. Yeah, no, I love that because I see, we're so similar in so many ways because I was Iyengar teacher, which is very alignment, very sort of, let's make this posture as perfect and as textbook as possible. And these are the tiny little tweaks and techniques that you need to do. And, that base will always stay with me. But I now teach so much more on an energetic level, teaching people to respect their bodies, to listen to their bodies, just to be aware, just to even like take a pause in between the poses to just feel how your body feels, just to notice the effect that that last pose had on you. Um, so yeah, I recognize that really so much. What an
Mhm.
extraordinary game to have discovered. And so, do you do this online or do you only do it in person?
I do this online. First, I was only doing it in person because I couldn't realize how I'm gonna play online with someone. How am I gonna, connect and channel? And then I started, and I didn't
Fine,
feel
isn't it?
any difference. I
Yeah.
connect with person no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's online or not online. Plus, first it was just word of mouth, so people would give this game as a present after they played it. They would often give it as a present to someone they know. Oh,
Yeah.
I know someone, she needs to play or he needs to play. And sometimes that person who just received that present was not even in USA, totally different country, and saying that, I will be traveling, but I don't want to wait. I want to play right now. I have a thing going on in my life. I need it right now. And that's also how I came to playing online with people. I'm like, okay, sure, well,
Yeah.
let's do it. And now I do.
Yeah, yeah, no, it works, and it is an extraordinary thing when you realize that actually, yeah, energy does not need to be in close proximity. You can be on the other side of the world, and it's all exactly the same.
That's true.
But what you said to me about this game of life, it really resonated. It makes me smile when I hear you say that because it's been something that's been on my mind recently a lot. And, is this whenever worries or anxieties and, life is busy and demanding, all the rest of it. And instead of kind of disappearing down those wormholes of worry, um, but to remind yourself that actually you're living kind of in a game and it's supposed to be an adventure and it's supposed to be fun. And it can be if you just take that perspective of this is teaching me something, this is taking me somewhere. This is,
Exactly.
there are so many different ways to enjoy life with that perspective that takes away the heaviness so effectively. And so to actually have a literal game I can't believe that literally only learning about the game of Leela now. But, everything in perfect timing and divine timing. And this is obviously when I was supposed to hear about it and from you. And I'm so, so grateful. Galina, how can people get in touch with you about this game of Leela and just know more about you and what you do?
I do have a website, which we're still kind of working on it because at first, I didn't really want to bring it out. And then people who played with me kind of convinced me that I have to. It has to go further than just the circle who knows me. So I
Mm.
do have a website. It's Sacred Sava, which Sava means owl.com, and they can reach out to me there. I also do have an Instagram, which is sacred.sava, SOVA, and they can also reach out to me there. I'll
Yeah.
be I'll be happy to play, and hopefully this will change more lives for better.
Yeah, no, there's so much wisdom. And before we started recording, you were telling me that the sacred savam is an owl,
Hmm.
and obviously owls famously represent wisdom. I love this idea because, and I feel like we don't say to owls or we don't think about owls going, yeah, well, that's a wise owl and that's a stupid owl. You don't judge an owl. You just go, yeah, it's got wisdom. In the same way that we all have wisdom, we all have that innate wisdom within us. And just searching for it and becoming aware of our potential. I loved the way you described that all the aspects I feel of the crown chakra, that sense of belonging and oneness and connection with the wider world is so special and is something that is available to everybody. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Just like yoga, it's like a yoga brain for your mat, basically. Yoga mat for your brain, basically. You
Yes.
you you know, you come to yoga and you start traveling through your class, and then you always leave in the class in awe, like, oh, I feel so good. Same for this game. It's a yoga mat for your brain, basically.
Yeah, which is so lovely because we so often we fight with our brains, the ego, the inner critic, often overwhelms the calm, soft, very quiet voice of the higher self. The inner critic, that ego voice is like a, loud child, just shouts and just stomps around all over the place. And the higher self is like a very quiet, shy, timid child. And we need to make things quiet in order for us to be able to listen to that wisdom that is within. So yeah, it's all about just this bringing yourself back to yourself and understanding. I love this, Galina. I'm so happy to have met you, and I am really interested. I would love, it's interesting as a facilitator myself, as I do these chakra readings, which really are channeled as well. I rarely do things for myself, so I'm going to put it out here and say I would really love to do a game of Leela with you at some point. So I'm going to stay in touch. And
Sounds
anybody else, yeah, get in the line because I'm first.
Sounds good. It does change lives, you know. Usually when people like you who are spiritual, who obviously know a lot about you, you know a lot about yourself, your soul, you're connected. But sometimes when it's someone who's not that connected, it changed the lives
Yeah.
drastically. People change their careers, you know, people finally go traveling. It's usually usually they follow up back with me in a few months, and usually it's like, all right, here's what happened. You know, I rented out my house, I changed my work, I started traveling, I met this girl. Now we're married, living in a different country, all because I played the game. So
Amazing.
it's I love it. I love it because it is a life changer, and I love it because I see how it affects people's lives, definitely in a positive way, you know.
Yeah. How can it not? How can it not? Shine in the light and lives will change. Thank you, Galina. Thank you so much for your time today. It has been a real joy chatting with
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.